My life seemed to be going according to a clear plan. Family, career, peace in my own house in the suburbs. Sarah and I had been married for almost 10 years. Our son Jake, an 8-year-old energetic boy, was our top priority. We seemed to be perfect for each other. I worked for a large IT company, and Sarah was a nurse. I had always perceived her night shifts as an important part of her profession, not realizing that these shifts could hide something more. My suspicion came about quite by accident. For my birthday, I received a smartwatch, which was a real eye-opener for me. I tracked my steps, my heart rate, even my sleep quality. This device impressed me with its capabilities, and I wanted to synchronize it with Sarah's watch. I thought it would be a fun way to share training results or just keep track of each other's activity. For the first few days, everything seemed fine. Sarah, like me, didn't really pay attention to all this data. But one day, when she was on night duty, I noticed something strange. Her physical activity recorded a significant reading at 2 in the morning. At first, I thought it might be something related to her work, such as helping a patient or checking equipment. But on the following nights, when she was also on shift, the situation repeated itself. My internal concern gradually turned into suspicion. I tried to find a logical explanation, but with each night that her watch data showed activity at strange hours, my peace of mind was disappearing. I started to remember other things, how she started to spend more time on her phone, often going to another room when she received a message. All these little things seemed insignificant until I started looking at them through the lens of the new data. One evening, I decided to check her explanation. She said she would be staying at the hospital all night because she needed help with a new patient. This time, I didn't just trust her words. I installed an app on her phone that could track her location. Deep down, I was still hoping I was wrong and that all my suspicions were just a game of the imagination. The next morning, I was horrified to see the data from the app. Sarah was not in the hospital. She spent the night in a luxury hotel in the city center. This fact hit me like a bolt from the blue. I looked at the screen for a long time, not believing my eyes. What was she doing there? With whom? I felt anger, but even more despair. To get answers to my questions, I decided to act. Over the next few nights, I monitored her watch and location. The data was irrefutable. She stayed at the same hotel over and over again. I realized I couldn't go on like this. But instead of causing a scandal, I decided to gather more evidence. Through a friend of mine who worked in security, I gained access to the surveillance footage of the hotel. My worst fears were confirmed. Sarah had entered the hotel with a man I had never seen before. My world fell apart. I thought for a long time about what to do. I wanted to find out the truth, but I also didn't want to hurt Jake. He was innocent in all of this, and I couldn't let our problems affect him. However, I realized that I couldn't pretend that everything was normal anymore. One evening when Sarah came home after another shift, I told her that I knew about her trips to the hotel. She was frozen, at a loss for words. Her eyes were filled with tears, but it could not move me anymore. I heard a few standard excuses from her, that she felt lonely, that our relationship had become routine. But for me, these were just empty words. We decided that divorce was the best way out. I realized that I could no longer trust her, and without trust, a family cannot exist. We explained everything to Jake in such a way as not to traumatize him, although he still felt the changes. I moved to another apartment, leaving Sarah's house. It hurt to leave the place where we had spent so many happy years, but I knew it was necessary to start a new life. A few weeks have passed, but I still replay these events in my head. The smartwatch, which was supposed to be just a nice gift, turned my life around. It opened my eyes to a truth I might never have known. Would I have been happier in ignorance? Probably. But now, despite the pain, I'm grateful for the chance to start from scratch. I still ask myself, could I have changed anything? Am I to blame for what happened? Write your opinion in the comments. What would you do if a smart device revealed a truth you weren't ready for? After my divorce from Sarah was finalized, I tried to adjust to my new life. My new apartment was cozy, although much smaller than our shared house. It had one bedroom, a small kitchen, and a living room, but it was enough for me. The main thing was that it was my territory, a place where I could recuperate and avoid painful memories. I decided to focus on my work and Jake. Every weekend we spent time together, going to the park, playing video games, or just walking around the city. Jake seemed to get used to the change, although I could see that he missed being together as a family. That was the biggest challenge for me, to maintain a sense of stability for him while my own life was being turned upside down. But despite my best efforts, I couldn't forget the events of the past month. At night, when Jake was already asleep, I replayed every conversation I had with Sarah, every moment that seemed suspicious. Betrayal is like poison. It infiltrates every aspect of your life, even if you try to keep it away. One evening, while flipping through old photos on my phone, I came across a picture taken the day I gave Sarah the watch. Her smile was so sincere, her eyes shone with happiness. It was the moment when I believed that our marriage was unbreakable. Now, looking at this photo, I could only feel bitterness. I began to wonder, was the watch the real reason for the revelation of the affair? Or was it inevitable, and I just noticed the signals in time? These thoughts haunted me. I even began to doubt whether I really knew Sarah as well as I thought I did. A few weeks after the divorce, I received an unexpected call from Mark, a friend of mine who worked at the same hospital where Sarah worked. We hadn't talked for a long time, but his voice sounded serious. "You need to know one thing," he began. "Everything that happened to you and Sarah is just the tip of the iceberg." I listened to his story with growing amazement. It turned out that the man I saw Sarah with in the hotel was a colleague of hers. But that was only the beginning. Mark hinted that their relationship had begun long before I learned the truth. Moreover, Sarah repeatedly covered up her absences under the guise of work, and even her bosses began to suspect something. I didn't know how to react to this information. On the one hand, I was grateful to Mark for his honesty. On the other hand, I felt like I had just been thrown another portion of salt on wounds that hadn't healed yet. I began to recall other moments of our life together that had seemed ordinary before. For example, the days when Sarah would come home late and look tired, but at the same time in high spirits. Or those weekends when she said she was going to visit a friend, but in fact she could have been dating him. These memories haunted me. I tried to distract myself. I started playing sports, reading books, and hanging out with friends more. But it all seemed useless. I felt betrayed not only as a husband, but also as a human being. Self-doubt is the worst thing that can happen after a betrayal. Was I not good enough? Could I have done something to avoid it? These questions hung over me like a dark cloud. One day, when I was driving Jake to his soccer practice, I met a woman named Anna. She was the mother of one of the boys on the team and immediately caught my attention with her friendliness and sincerity. We started talking, and I felt that she understood me like no one else. Anna was divorced, and her story was somewhat similar to mine. Her husband had also cheated on her, and she had to start from scratch. Her words inspired me. She said that every crisis is an opportunity to find something better. Her belief that life can change for the better helped me to look at the situation from a different perspective. Anna and I started spending more time together. Not only did she support me, but she also helped me build a relationship with Jake. She often told me that the most important thing was to be a good parent and not let your resentment affect your child. Her words became a guide for me. A month after our divorce, I finally felt like I could breathe again. My life wasn't perfect yet, but I began to notice small joys. The joy of spending time with Jake, pleasant conversations with Anna, success at work. I realized that betrayal is not the end of life, but only a transitional stage. It forced me to reconsider my values, understand who I really am, and find new sources of strength. Of course, the pain and resentment still remained, but now I knew I could cope with it. When I look at my watch, I no longer feel pain. Now it's just a tool that helps me move forward, both literally and figuratively. I started to believe that new opportunities are waiting for me, and this experience will only make me stronger. 2 months have passed since my life changed forever. It seems like this should be enough time for everything to settle down, but in reality, I still felt the weight of the past. No matter how hard I tried to move forward, certain things brought me back. It was not only the memories of Sarah, but also my own inner state, constant doubts, unfinished questions that did not give me peace of mind. I thought that after the divorce, I would find answers to all my questions, but they only grew in number. Why did she go through with it? Was there something in our relationship that pushed her to make this choice? And most importantly, how could I avoid this in the future? These thoughts consumed me, forcing me to analyze every detail of our life together again and again. At the same time, I started to notice how difficult it was to get rid of old habits. For example, every morning when I made coffee, my hand would automatically reach for 2 cups, even though I only needed one now. I hesitated for a long time about throwing away her favorite things, the books she had left behind, her coat still hanging in the closet. These little things reminded me that we had once been one, and parting with them seemed almost as painful as parting with her. The hardest part was getting back into a routine without thinking about what Sarah was doing now. Does she regret what happened? Does she continue her relationship with that man? I tried to avoid any information about her, but our town was small and gossip spread faster than I could control it. People asked me about the divorce, sometimes hinting that they had seen her with a new man. I just nodded and tried to change the subject, but these words left their mark. Jake was also going through a difficult period. I could see him struggling to understand what was happening between Sarah and me, even though we tried to explain everything as gently as possible. One night, when we were reading a book before bed, he suddenly asked, "Dad, why doesn't Mom live with us anymore? Doesn't she love you?" This question hit me in the heart. I tried to find the right words to explain the situation to him without portraying Sarah in a negative light. You know, Jake, sometimes adults stop understanding each other. It doesn't mean that your mom or I love you any less. It just means that we live apart now, but you will always be the most important thing to us. He listened attentively and then nodded quietly. His wisdom at such a young age amazed me. But at the same time, I could see how much he missed our family. This motivated me to become the best father for him, to show him that even in the most difficult circumstances, you can find the strength to move forward. One day, when I was returning home after training, I saw Sarah. She was walking down the street with the man I had seen at the hotel. Her eyes met mine for a moment, but she quickly looked away. That moment was short, but it left a deep mark. I felt anger and sadness at the same time. But what surprised me the most was that I no longer felt the burning pain I had felt before. Perhaps it was a sign that I was gradually letting go of her. That evening I told Anna about this meeting. She listened to me carefully and then said, "You have to allow yourself to move on. The past will remain the past, and you can't do anything about it. But your future depends on you." These words became another point of support for me. Anna was right. I can't change what happened, but I can influence what happens next. To finally close the door to the past, I decided to do a general cleaning. I gathered all the things that belonged to Sarah and took them to a shelter for women who needed help. It was a symbolic goodbye that helped me feel freer. I also started to devote more time to my hobbies. I used to dream of learning to play the guitar, but I always found excuses. Now I had enough time, so I signed up for a course. Music has become a kind of therapy for me, a way to express my emotions and find harmony. Anna supported me in everything. We often went for walks with Jake and her son, had picnics, and went to the lake. I didn't know if our friendship would grow into something more, but I was grateful for her support. She helped me to feel again that life can be beautiful, even after painful losses. Eventually, I realized that betrayal is not only about losing trust in another person. It's also about losing trust in yourself. After Sarah cheated on me, I doubted my decisions for a long time, my ability to recognize the truth. But now I knew that it was just one page in my life, not the whole book. I began to build a new life step by step. It wasn't perfect yet, but I could see the progress. I became stronger, wiser, more aware. I realized that loving myself is the first step to trusting others again. The next few months after I decided to free myself from the burden of the past were filled with unexpected emotions. On the one hand, I was relieved. Life became easier without constant suspicion, distrust, and pain. On the other hand, there was still a feeling of emptiness that arose every time I remembered how Sarah and I had started our life together. I continued to build my new world, but even among the small victories, I faced difficulties. One day, Anna told me, "You have to learn to forgive. This is the only way to free you from the past." Her words seemed absurd to me at first. How could I forgive something that had destroyed me so much? However, the more I thought about it, the clearer I realized that forgiveness was not for Sarah, but for myself. To deal with my emotions, I decided to write a letter to Sarah. Not to send it, but to put everything I was feeling on paper. I needed to let these words out because they had been living inside me for too long. The letter turned out to be long and emotional. I wrote about how much I loved her, how much I trusted her, and how painful it was to find out about her betrayal. I recalled the moments when we planned our future together and how it all fell apart. But in the end, I wrote something that I did not expect from myself. Despite everything, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the moments of happiness we shared. Thank you for our son. And thank you for the fact that what you did made me re-examine myself and realize who I really am. I didn't send that letter. It remained in my desk drawer, but writing it helped me get rid of a heavy load. I no longer felt hatred. It was replaced by something else, a quiet sadness and acceptance. One day, while I was working on a new project, my phone rang. Sarah's name came up on the screen. I hesitated for a few seconds before answering. Her voice was calm, but a little tense. "Hi, Mark. Can we meet? I want to talk to you." My first reaction was mixed. I didn't want to revisit old conversations, but something in her voice made me agree. We agreed to meet at a cafe not far from our former home. When I saw her, she looked exactly as I remembered her, but something in her eyes changed. She started by apologizing. She said she was sorry for how things had happened and that she had never intended to hurt me so badly. I listened to her in silence. This was not the Sarah I had known before. She looked sincere and confused. I felt that she was also struggling with her own demons. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said in the end. "I just wanted to say that you deserve to be happy, and that I hope you find it." This conversation was short but important. It was the last step for me to let go of the past. I realized that I had forgiven her, even if I had never directly told her so. From then on, my life began to take on a new meaning. I continued to talk to Anna, and our relationship grew closer and closer. She helped me see that love could be different, honest, open, and safer. We took things slowly, but I felt like I was starting to believe in the future again. Jake was getting happier too. He no longer asked difficult questions, but instead enjoyed the time we spent together. We even started to plan a trip together that he had long dreamed of, a trip to a national park where we could explore nature and just enjoy the peace. Looking back, I realized that this difficult period of my life taught me many important things. I realized that true strength is the ability to let go. That forgiveness is not about forgetting the pain, but about stopping letting it control you. And that even after the greatest losses, you can find new opportunities for happiness. The smartwatch that had once caused me to be exposed now reminded me that even the smallest details can change our lives. It no longer caused me negative emotions. On the contrary, I saw it as a symbol of a new beginning. How do you feel about forgiveness? Could you let go of a person who betrayed you? Write your opinion in the comments. Time is the strangest phenomenon in life. On the one hand, it heals. On the other hand, it scars. It's been 6 months since I first found out about Sarah's betrayal, and it seems like I've finally reached a point where I can look at my life without bitterness. It's been a journey full of challenges, but I've come to realize that every day brings me closer to a new beginning. One of the main lessons I learned during this time was that I needed to find a balance with myself before moving forward. I started to spend more time doing things that brought me pleasure. The guitar, which I had once dreamed of learning to play, now became my constant companion. I spent every evening with it, discovering the magic of music. I also returned to sports. I used to run, but because of work and life, it fell by the wayside. Now my morning runs have become a kind of meditation for me. I run, feeling how my body works, how my breathing becomes steadier and my thoughts clearer. It helped me overcome stress and feel in control of my life. Another important change was reading. I rediscovered the books that once helped me find answers to difficult questions. They became not only a source of inspiration, but also a way to escape from reality when I needed it. Anna remained an important part of my life. Our relationship developed naturally, without haste. She was my support in moments of doubt and joy. She taught me to see the world from a new perspective, to appreciate the little things more, and to live in the present without dwelling on the past. We spent a lot of time together, walking with our children, watching movies, sharing stories about our past lives. Her frankness and sincerity were what I missed. She was proof to me that something real and worthwhile can come after losses. One evening, when we were sitting on the shore of the lake, Anna said, "Mark, you have changed. I see a new strength in you. You started living for yourself, and it's inspiring." These words stayed with me. They were a reminder of how important it is to work on yourself and not be afraid of change. My son has become happier too. I could see him returning to himself, smiling and laughing again, and enjoying our adventures together. Together, we went to the national park he had been dreaming about. There, among the majestic trees and babbling streams, I saw happiness in his eyes. He said, "Dad, this is the best day of my life." These words meant more to me than anything else. They were a confirmation that I was moving in the right direction. I promised myself that I would do my best to make him feel loved and protected at all times. Unexpectedly, our lives crossed paths again with Sarah. It happened at a school event where Jake was speaking. We were sitting at different ends of the hall, but our eyes met several times. After Jake's speech, she came up to me. "Mark, I'm glad to see that you're doing well," she said. "Jake looks happy, and that's what matters." I nodded. Her words sounded sincere, but I no longer felt the tension that used to arise every time we met. She was a part of my past, and I accepted it. We agreed to meet more often for Jake's sake, so that he could see that we could communicate without conflict. This new dynamic was strange but necessary. My life had changed forever, but I was no longer afraid of these changes. I learned to appreciate moments, let go of pain, and find joy in the simplest things. My past left its mark, but it also made me stronger. Now I know that every ending is just the beginning of something new. My new life was just beginning, and I was looking forward to what it would bring. How did you cope with the changes in your life? Do you believe that you can find new happiness after a heavy loss? Share your thoughts in the comments.